Welcome to Mystery Mondays, everyone. We salute you. We hope that you had a good week. What have you been doing? We hope that you had a nice weekend. I hope you're feeling refreshed. We are here to be making sure that although the working week has begun, that you can still enjoy yourself a little bit with our tantalising mysteries.
May your Mondays be mysterious.
Forevermore. This week it's Drew's turn to give us a mystery. By the way, we hope you liked our new little intro today. That's actually from the if for anybody that knows what that is, you're a G. It's actually the intro music for the 1980s movie Lady Hawk with Michelle Pfeiffer, and I can't remember the name of the main guy in it. It's like he was in Blade Runner. Blonde eyes,
Ryan Gosling?
sorry, the original Blade Runner, but showing his age, isn't he? Showing his age with like he's got like blonde hair and blue eyes. He sadly passed away a couple of years ago, I think, from cancer. His name was like Rutger Hager or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Like a really interesting name. But anyway, Michelle Pfeiffer. It was a cool premise to the movie. It was like they were cursed. They were like lovers and they were cursed. And let me get this right. In the daytime, she would turn into a hawk. And in the nighttime, he would turn into a wolf.
Wow.
So like they were always companions.
Yeah.
But like they would never be able to be with each other in human form. Yes, epic
Bestiality.
movie. Lots of like, yeah. Maybe it might have been possible for her to do it with him as a wolf. But good luck having sex with a hawk.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Damn, tickle that hawk.
Damn.
I mean, if you think about it, it's not very like. How would you go about that?
Yeah.
I reckon it'd just be really horrible.
Not ideal.
Too much claw and beak.
Oh, baby.
And not enough. Anyway. Anyway, welcome to Mystery Mondays, everyone. It's Drew's turn for a mystery. Let me get up some
Get me up some
spooky
ambiance, man.
Serious.
Give me a bit of ambiance.
A little bit of ambiance in your life. A little bit of spooky for my wife. A little bit of creepers, what I need. A little bit of Drew with a mystery.
Oh, yeah, baby. Yeah. This one this week isn't so creepy, but it's
a mystery nonetheless.
But it is a mystery, and it's a bit
nice.
it's a bit of like a man,
that
would be crazy. Okay. That would be crazy, and that would be really annoying if this happened to you. It's called A Case of the Sodders.
Ooh, the Sodders.
Sodder.
Have you ever heard of the mysterious disappearance of the Sodder children?
Do you know what? I think I might have.
Yes.
Oh, the name Sodder rings a bell.
Yeah,
but I can't think why.
I think you would know about this one potentially.
The name Sodder really rings a bell to me.
Yeah, it's about
Sodderick.
it's about a fire that happened in 1945. We'll get into all of it.
So just a real quick one. Should Adobe be up?
Yes.
There
Anyway,
we go.
On with the show.
There we go. Yeah, so it's it's crazy, man. I just think if this actually happened, I'll basically lay down the premise. So there was a fire that happened in 1945, and and the 5 children.
A mysterious fire. But didn't like 4 of them supposedly died or something?
Yeah, 5 of them.
Oh, all 5 of them supposedly died.
So there was 10 children, and 5 of them went completely missing. And
but it's like
after the fire, but no bones were ever found or anything.
But there was like a ladder.
Yeah. You know this one.
I don't know it that well.
Cool.
I mean, I know it pretty well.
Well, we'll get into it anyway. So, for nearly 4 decades, anyone driving down Route 16 near Fayetteville, West Virginia, could see a billboard bearing the grainy images of 5 children, all dark-haired and solemn-eyed. Their names and ages: Maurice, 14, Martha, 12, Louis, 9, Jenny, 8, Betty, 5. So from 5 to 14.
Right.
Stenciled beneath, along with speculation about what happened to them. So this was just like near Virginia. This picture, if you can kind of see that a little bit on there. Can you see that?
So
that was just like almost a billboard for 40 years. The family like had that like kind of painted up on the side. So Fayetteville was and is a small town with a main street that doesn't run longer than 100 yards. And rumours always played a large role in the case than evidence. No one even agreed on whether the children were dead or alive. What everyone knew for certain was this. On the night before Christmas, 1945, George and Jenny Sodder and 9 of their 10 children went to sleep. One son was away in the army. Around 1 a.m, a fire broke out. George and Jenny and 4 of their children escaped, but the other 5 were never seen again. George had tried to save them, breaking a window to re-enter the house, slicing a swath of skin from his arm. He could see nothing through the smoke and fire, which had swept through all of the downstairs rooms, living and dining room, kitchen, office, and his and Jenny's bedroom. He took frantic stock of what he knew. 2-year-old Sylvia, whose crib was in their bedroom, was safe outside, as was 17-year-old Marion and 2 sons, 23-year-old John and 16-year-old George Jr., who had fled the upstairs bedroom they shared, singeing their hair on the way out. I thought it was a Y, but it was a G. He figured Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty still had to be up there, cowering in 2 bedrooms on either end of the hallway.
Poor little sods.
Separated by a staircase that was now engulfed in flames.
Oh.
He raced back outside, hoping to reach them through the upstairs windows, but the ladder he always kept propped against the house was strangely missing. There's that ladder that you were saying about.
I remember the ladder incident.
An idea struck. He would drive one of his 2 coal trucks up to the house and climb atop it to reach the windows.
Good idea.
But even though they'd functioned perfectly the day before, neither would start now. So we had like 2 massive coal trucks with this thing. So they wouldn't start up, so we couldn't get up there.
That's
Everything's
mental.
going wrong for this guy so far.
It's almost as if this has been set up.
He ransacked his mind for another option. He tried to scoop water from a rain barrel, but found it frozen solid. 5 of his children were stuck somewhere inside those great whipping ropes of smoke.
Man.
He didn't notice that his arm was slick with blood, that his voice hurt from screaming their names. His daughter Marion sprinted to a neighbour's home to call the Fayetteville Fire Department, but couldn't get any operator response. A neighbour who saw the blaze made a call from a nearby tavern, but again no operator responded. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Like
That's really weird, man.
Exasperated, the neighbour drove into town and tracked down Fire Chief F.J. Morris, who initiated Fayetteville's version of a fire alarm, a phone tree system whereby one firefighter phoned another, who phoned another.
A bit like when the beacons were lit. In
Yeah.
the rings.
But I suppose this was like 1945.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And it's like, and it's not like an urban area. This is like rural.
So I was thinking, what? The fire department didn't answer? But like,
Where's the fire marshal?
Where's the fire marshal around here?
I mean, it's very sort of in the winter as well, isn't it? Like you were saying, like the bucket of water literally froze over. So you'd
Everyone's
expect
just
that
in the
maybe
tavern by the fire, just having a
maybe
drink
they weren't
and-
really expecting a fire at this kind of time of year.
That's it. The fire department was only 2.5 miles away, but the crew didn't arrive until 8 a.m. So this had happened at like 1 a.m. By which point the Sodder's home had been reduced to a smoking pile of ash. Damn.
Putting the sod in Sodders.
Mm-hmm. It's a Sodom occasion.
Sodomy has struck.
Oh, Sodden's wet. They needed a bit more sodden.
And sodomy is something cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
altogether.
They needed that
story
house to
altogether.
be sodden.
Yeah.
Damp.
But instead it was full of Sodom.
Damn. George and Jenny assumed that 5 of their children were dead, but a brief search of the grounds on Christmas Day turned up no traces of remains. Chief Morris suggested that the blaze had been hot enough to completely cremate their bodies. A state police inspector combed the rubble and attributed the fire to faulty wiring. George covered the basement with 5 feet of dirt, intending to preserve the site as a memorial. A coroner's office issued 5 death certificates just before the new year, attributing the causes to fire or suffocation. But the Sodders had begun to wonder if their children were still alive.
Did they ever leave? Because you said the neighbour went and got the fire department, right? So did the rest of the Sodder family, were they just like sort of still by the house?
Yeah, they were all by the house, but they tried to get the fire department through different means, but they didn't actually arrive until 8 a.m.
Yeah. So they just like watched it, essentially.
Yeah.
Just had to watch it all just
they
collapse
couldn't do
and everything.
anything, so they
Man.
were
Right.
still there.
The idea that you'd have to like
5
watching
kids
that
in
with
the
your
house.
kids and man.
That's what I couldn't believe. The fact that it's 5 as well. These are the poor souls that went missing that day. If you can kind of just see the little thing on there.
God bless your souls. God bless your souls.
Some of them, the one on the left particularly, doesn't look like too young.
No, so it was 14 he was.
Yeah.
So a little bit about the Sodder family then. So George Sodder was born Giorgio Sodder in Tula, Sardinia in 1895.
Sardinia, a nice little island off Italy.
Isn't that where
Franco Colombo
and
was
also
born.
Gino D'Acampo?
No, he's from Napoli.
Oh, is he?
Just I want to say East
no,
Coast.
But he's got a thing on Sardinia as well. He's got like a house on Sardinia.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
probably.
That
And
was
Dino
what I
D'Acampo,
think.
isn't he?
Yeah.
He's probably got a nice house everywhere. But yeah, and also Franco Colombo, who was unfortunately his best friend and training partner. He was called the Sardinian Strongman. It's a bit of trivia.
Muscles. Yeah. So Giorgio Sodder was born in Tula, Sardinia in 1895 and immigrated to the United States in 1908 when he was 13.
A lot of Italians immigrated to the United States, didn't
Seems like it, man.
they? Yeah.
Loads. Sopranos.
Joe Rogan's an Italian American.
Is he?
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
cool.
All of his ancestry is Italian.
Nice. An older brother who had accompanied him to Ellis Island immediately returned to Italy, leaving George on his own. He found work on a Pennsylvania on the Pennsylvania railroads, carrying water and supplies to the labourers, and after a few years, moved to Smithers, West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Get you higher, take me home,
Burning
burning house.
Oh.
Smart and ambitious, he first worked as a driver and then launched his own trucking company, hauling dirt for construction and later freight and coal.
Nice.
One day he walked into a local store called The Music Box and met the owner's daughter, Jenny Cipriani, who had
clearly of Italian descent as well.
who had come over from Italy when she was 3.
What is it? Do you know what? And it suddenly made me think that I should have looked into this before. I don't actually know why it was that so many Italians migrated to America.
It's like Brooklyn. Brooklyn's.
Is it
Well,
just
a
all
lot of
Italian,
the East Coast, like New York.
a
New
lot
York
of Irish didn't they as well?
A lot of Irish did, yeah. I think that was a bit earlier on. The Irish went there. They went there looking for work and stuff like that, and because they weren't happy with the conditions of Ireland under British rule and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know why.
We'll have to look
caused
into
the
that.
Italians to move?
Because like you say,
But
it's so many.
I mean, obviously, and American food is very heavily influenced by. You know, you go to a place somewhere like in Britain, we have like Frankie and Benny's. It's like Italian American food, and it's like you can get burgers and steaks and that, but you can also get it's like pasta and pizza, and it's almost like that's like American food, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially like at least on the East Coast, anyway. In like New York, you think of like that's what like New York food is. It's all pizza, pasta, but like steak and burgers and
Good mix, man.
yeah.
So they married and had 10 children between 1923 and 1943. They went at it hard, man.
Well, no contraception, was it?
10 kids, fair shout, and settled in Fayetteville, West Virginia, an Appalachian town with a small but active Italian immigrant community. The Sodders were, said one country magistrate, one of the most respected middle-class families around. George held strong opinions about everything from business to current events and politics, but was for some reason reticent to talk about his youth. He never explained what had happened back in Italy to make him want to leave. Anyway, back to the story. One day after the fire, the Sodders planted flowers across the space where their house had once stood and began to recount a series of odd moments leading up to the fire. There was a stranger who had appeared at the home a few months earlier, back in the fall, asking about hauling work. He meandered to the back of the house, pointed to 2 separate fuse boxes and said, "This is going to cause a fire someday."
Oh.
Bit ominous. Strange, George thought, especially since he had just had the wiring checked by the local power company, which pronounced it in fine condition. Around the same time, another man tried to sell the family life insurance and became irate when George declined. "Your goddamn house is gonna go up in smoke," he warned, "and your children are gonna be destroyed. You're going to be paid for the dirty remarks you've been making about Mussolini."
Oh, so this was an Italian guy as well?
Yeah,
and it's like the
insurance
Sodders were talking badly about Mussolini, who at the time
He said he's like quite outspoken about politics and stuff.
was the head of Italy. Obviously, famously, Mussolini was friends with Hitler and was a fascist. And that's, you know, and Mussolini obviously ended up getting overthrown by the Italians, and I think he was beheaded. I think his head was like paraded in Rome. But well, good on him for being against Mussolini. Mussolini was he was not only was he a bad human being, but he was also just a bit of an idiot.
Bad dictator.
Yeah.
George was indeed outspoken about his dislike for the Italian dictator, occasionally engaging in heated arguments with other members of Fayetteville's Italian community.
So I didn't know this, but it sounds like a lot of American immigrants in America actually supported Mussolini. Wow.
And at the time didn't take the man's threat seriously. The older Sodder sons also recalled something peculiar. Just before Christmas, they noticed a man parked along US Highway 21, intently watching the younger kids as they came home from school. So that must have been weird.
Do you know what also, sorry, just to also mention, like, you know that life insurance guy? Like, can you imagine somebody trying to sell you something, and then when you just, like, decline, to them being like, your house is going to burn and your kids are going to die?
Yeah.
What?
And it was that same guy, wasn't it, that, like, said about the Mussolini thing as well?
Yeah. Now I'm definitely not buying it.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, why did he try? Was he like just trying to sell insurance to like get in there? Like, how, do you know what I mean? It's weird that he then went into like political things.
He needs to work on a sales pitch, that guy.
Yeah.
Like, whatever his motive was, do you know what I mean?
I do think it's mental that twice in quick succession, there are two different people come up to them and be like, "Your house is gonna burn."
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that's not a very not a very frequent thing you'd be told. I
don't know in the 40s how. Like, would every house have had electricity then? Or
no. I mean, in Stolford, just near us, I'm pretty sure that some of the houses didn't have electricity until like the 60s or something like that.
Because I'm thinking that could have been like, he might have been one of the first houses to have electricity, and there was those fuse boxes at the back, but then someone's come along and maybe his house hasn't got electricity, and he's like, that's gonna cause a fire. Yeah. You know, because they're not used to like, do you know what I mean?
Like, apparently literally it's funny to us to think of this nowadays because it seems almost like quite archaic technology, but apparently when phones, just basic like landline phones, first started gaining popularity in, I think it was the 20s, might have been the teens, or it was either the 19 teens or the 1920s. People thought that there were like health effects and weird stuff could happen to you from that, and they were like almost like scared of it. Some people were like really against it. They were like, no, what's wrong with writing a letter? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
What's wrong with sending the pigeons out?
And they'd be like, no, because in those days you'd like have to hold like this thing. It was almost like a gramophone, like a tiny one of them to your ear.
Yeah, and you'd have two, and you'd have one for the mouth, one for the mouth. I think that's cool.
You'd like pick it up,
cool.
It would sit on it, and you'd pick it up, and you'd have to like, and then you'd be like that, like, but some, especially like older people, like just apparently like hated it. They were like, "What's the point of this? This is stupid."
People are quite resistant to change a lot of the time with anything that comes out, really, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, to be honest, man, I'm like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think it's a natural human thing to be a bit like.
And it's like
change
when you're finally forced to sort of adapt. You think, do you know what? Yeah, this is really good.
Yeah.
But beforehand, there's this weird resistance. I'm always been.
I'm
really
like it with 5G.
Like that or anything. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like even like you know, like Josh, like your brother, like has like an Apple Watch and that. Like when he first like used that, I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah.
But I'm just like,
Or Chris's ring that he's got that you can just like beat money. You can pay. It's a payment ring, so you just be like, boop.
But to me, there's something on the back of my head that's like, well, what's wrong with using a card?
Yeah, I do not trust it.
But I mean, even like a card, like that's mental if you think about it. Like compared to like 50 years ago, the idea that you'd have this weird little plastic thing and you just go beep, and then you could
phones, man. I remember like being a kid and like thinking I had a thought that one day there would be like this little device that I'd be able to watch.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and it's crazy like how good the color is in that on like your phone screens now. It's like perfect picture quality compared to how you like used to watch the TV, and it's like and it comes in on like radio waves, or I'm not sure about radio waves. It comes on a certain frequency. You got Ariel's got to pick it up, but like, and it's a bit blurry or a bit grainy. Like, you know.
I was thinking the other day, Drew, do you remember like when PCs first started becoming like common to come actually into people's houses? Well, no, I'm thinking like before that, like before even internet. I remember that it was probably about 1995. We had our first computer at home, and it didn't have internet or anything like that. And you'd have like games on floppy disks.
Yeah.
Not even on a CD-ROM. It was like on a floppy disk, and it would be like this weird fantasy game. And you put it in, and it's like, mate, like the quality was just like crazy.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? And it was like. like, do you know what I mean? Like proper 8-bit.
There's something like super retro and cool now about that. Like, quite quirky, you know. There's like this quirky like thing,
but it was like almost like would have made like an old school Sega or like Super Nintendo seem like super advanced. Like that's how like retro those sort of games were. It was like mental.
Yeah, man.
Crazy. And then I think nowadays, like what games are like now, the games that are coming out. On what's it called? Like the latest sort of like Unreal Engine 5, is it, or something like that?
Yeah,
it's like, man, it's like if you freaking had like even like remotely bad eyesight, you could think that was like the real world.
Yeah.
If you were watching it on telly, it's
and I even think sometimes now better than real world. So when like with movies and like you know like with camera and stuff, like amazing cameras like red cameras and stuff. Yeah. You know the way that they play with the colors and stuff and make it look so like 8K quality and just like everything, it is just insane. Like I think with this Unreal Engine 5 and that, it could almost look better than the real world. Like
it picks up stuff that our eyes can't even pick up.
And just kind of puts this like sheen on it that's completely different.
And obviously we've already got really good VR technology for games, so I think you're going to be able to VR in that.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. Like more interesting than like real life a lot of times. So you can see like how it is going to like. It's going to be weird, man.
There's an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where a crew member, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. All the trekkies out there know what I'm on about. And he has to go into like full-on counselling because they have in Star Trek they have what's called holodecks, and it's like VR, but you go in there and you can almost like write your own program. And then you just play it, and you can be whatever scenario you want. So you could be like, you could play like Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, and it would play out exactly like real life, but you were like Aragorn, and you could either have the safety on or the safety off. And it's like he becomes like addicted to it because you would, and he's like just living his life in it.
Yeah, man, and you can imagine it happen because like what as humans, like we want things easy, like naturally we want things easy. We can be like quite lazy in certain situations. It's like because you're trying to preserve like energy in your body, so you naturally, do you know what I mean? Will sit down rather than run, like, you know. So like if you've got something feeding your entertainment on such a level that is just like it's so much fun, you can imagine you would just get lost in it, like like you kind of do with games, but just next level, like and you just be sitting there sedentary doing nothing. Like it is quite. We've talked about it before on like the podcast. It's like quite scary, but you can see how everyone is just gonna like love it. You know,
Ready Player One style.
There are already like fully grown men that are like addicted to playing like World of Warcraft and play it like 12 hours a day and that. I don't know how those people like even like live to do that, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe they inherited loads of money or something, or maybe they're like they game for a living.
Gamers.
Yeah, there are people obviously nowadays that get essentially paid to game because they like just review games, and that, aren't they, and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, even like YouTube videos and that, like recently I've been getting into like stuff and literally I'll just spend like all evening like watching YouTube. But I think what I'm actually doing, if anyone was like look at me from the outside, I'm sitting there just kind of like watching and my brain's active, but that's all I'm doing.
So the engine's running, but no one's behind the wheel.
It's not healthy, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes
and you feel physically weird.
You need a bit of like a recalibration where you take a step away from it and just become a bit more balanced with it.
I remember I played an Assassin's Creed game for so long in one go, and I was walking around afterwards, and like I was almost like confused.
Seeing a bit blurry.
No, it was like it wasn't even like it was blurry. It was like I was almost like confused as I was walking around because I felt like I was still playing the game, and it was almost like I was naturally almost like going to like start trying to like parkour up buildings and that, and I was just like. Whoa, man! Like I must have played it for like 8 hours.
I used to get like that with Witcher, actually.
Yeah,
I had that with Walking Dead when I watched the whole series of Walking Dead, and I just sat and binge watched it for like probably like a month during lockdown.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving the house finally, and I was like walking a bit cautiously, almost like there was going to be like a zombie around the corner or something. I was like ready to whip out my pistol or something, you know.
Yeah, man, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, you can get lost in that, man.
Yeah, man.
Lost in that crazy VR, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But anyway, back to the electrical. Back to the Sodders. So we literally went off on a massive freaking branch there.
It can happen, man.
All because of the fact that the Sodders had electricity that most people don't, and that there might have been like resentment or people demonising the fact that they had electricity.
Or actually scared about it.
Yeah.
Like, that's not called fire. You can't have that in your house.
Yeah.
So we talked about that, and so we're going through the kind of weird things that had happened before the fire that people recount. So on the night of the fire, Jenny, that's the wife, recounted also a strange telephone call. Around 12:30 Christmas morning, after the children had opened a few presents and everyone had gone to sleep, the shrill ring of the telephone broke the quiet. Jenny rushed to answer it. An unfamiliar female asked for an unfamiliar name. There was raucous laughter and glasses clinking in the background. Jenny said,
Roy there?
Jenny said, "You have the wrong number," and hung up. Tiptoeing back to bed, she noticed all of the downstairs lights were still on and the curtains open.
Freaky.
The front door was unlocked. She saw Marion,
I am Marion.
who, like one of her kids, asleep on the sofa in the living room, and assumed that the other kids were upstairs in bed. She turned out the lights, closed the curtains, locked the door, and returned to her room.
That's creepy, man.
She had just begun to doze off when she heard one sharp, loud bang on the roof, and then a rolling noise. An hour later, she was roused once again, this time by the heavy smoke curling into her room. Chaos ensued.
So that was her perspective of the night.
That was the night, yeah.
It's almost like someone threw something on fire onto the roof and it went bang and then rolled down.
Yeah.
What's that meant?
Yeah. So Jenny also couldn't understand how 5 children could perish in a fire and leave no bones, no flesh, nothing. She conducted a private experiment, burning animal bones, chicken bones, beef joints, pork chop bones, to see if the fire could consume them. Each time she was left with a heap of charred bones. She knew
you need
that
an extreme temperature, just like turn bones to dust, essentially, or melt bones.
So this next bit. So she knew the remnants of various household appliances have been found in the burned out basement, still identifiable. An employee at a crematorium informed her that bones remain after bodies are burned for 2 hours at 2,000 degrees. So bones remain after 2 hours at 2,000 degrees. Their house was destroyed in 45 minutes.
This is a dodgy case, you know. There's so many weird bits about this.
So it'd be interesting to know. Does it say or anything like what, like the average temperature of something like a house fire would be? Because I guess it's only things like curtains and wood that's burning. There's no fuel like jet fuel or any like. Do you know what I mean? Like
it doesn't go in this.
Yeah.
I wonder what it is, because that's the same thing about like 9/11 and stuff. What they say
about that.
You know, the fact that
jet fuel and that.
Yeah.
But they were saying like even jet fuel can't melt the certain beams and stuff.
Yeah, and the fact that there's these like slices in the beams and it's just literally they're just completely molten and everything.
So it says a household wood fire burns at around 600 degrees Celsius. So that's just like a wood fire. So I don't know how much, like if the entire thing, like I don't think that's the entire house.
No. I guess that's like a wood fire, like somebody obviously would build, set fire to deliberately.
Yeah, that's what I assume.
Yeah. But that's
That
that's nowhere near 2,000.
A standard house fire can reach temperatures of up to 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit or 815 degrees Celsius.
But that's still 500 less.
That's
I don't know whether this is Fahrenheit or Celsius, but
either
way, it's more.
If it's American, most likely Fahrenheit. Yeah, they don't use centigrade in America.
So Fahrenheit 2,000. So yeah,
that's 500 less.
There are still bones after 2 hours at 2,000.
Yeah, and that's saying that was only 45 minutes at probably about 1,500, if that's the average.
Yeah, that's it.
So that's not very consistent with reality, is it?
The collection of odd moments grew. A telephone repairman told the Sodders that their lines appeared to have been cut, not burned. They realised that if the fire had been electrical, the result of faulty wiring, as the official reported stated, then the power would have been dead. So how to explain the lighted downstairs rooms that she all saw when, when she went down? It was all still on.
Yes.
So yeah, but they're describing faulty wiring, but that would mean that there would be no electricity in the house. Yeah. A witness came forward claiming he saw a man at the fire scene taking a block and tackle used for removing car engines. Could he be the reason George's trucks refused to start? Yes. So this man was seen at the fire scene taking a block and tackle used for removing car engines. So that could have been why his trucks didn't start. One day, while the family was visiting the site, Sylvia found a hard rubber object in the yard. Jenny
and then she had a good time.
She said it wasn't hers. Jenny recalled hearing the hard thud on the roof, the rolling sound. George...
It was a giant dildo. Giant flaming dildo. Just got lobbed on the roof. Because it was just like flaming, like rolling down.
Oh, God.
Sorry, everyone.
George concluded it was a napalm pineapple bomb of the type used in warfare.
Oh, right. Maybe used by Mussolini and his supporters.
Then came the reports of sightings. A woman claimed to have seen the missing children peering from a passing car while the fire was in progress. A woman operating a tourist stop between Fayetteville and Charleston, some 50 miles west, said she saw the children the morning after the fire. I served them breakfast, she told the police. There was a car with Florida license plates at the tourist court too. A woman at a Charleston hotel saw the children's photos in the newspaper and said she had seen 4 of the 5 children a week after the fire. The children were accompanied by 2 women and 2 men, all of Italian extraction.
Italian extraction.
She said in a statement. I do not remember the exact date. However, the entire party did register at the hotel and stayed in a large room with several beds. They registered about midnight. I tried to talk to the children in a friendly manner, but the men appeared hostile and refused to allow me to talk to the children. One of the men looked at me in a hostile manner. He turned around and began talking rapidly in Italian. Immediately, the whole party stopped talking to me. I sensed that I was being frozen out, and so I said nothing more. They left early the next morning.
And so I say nothing more. This sounds real dodgy, doesn't it? I mean, also, it is exactly what you would expect if they had been abducted. You know what I mean? It's
yeah, don't talk to him.
And Italian.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously it was Mussolini. It was Italian Mussolini supporters that were getting aggressive with the family leading up to the incident. So
yeah, and it's like, and it seemed like there's more than just like there was 2 men and 2 women and all the children. So it's almost like a network or something.
Conglomerate.
Yeah, you know, rather than just like one crazy family that's like, I'm just take all the children.
It definitely seems to be in connection of that whole Mussolini like.
What a weird thing though, as well. Like, I'm gonna steal half the kids, and then just like, you know, it seems like really weird that as payback or whatever, you know, maybe they didn't want to kill any. I don't know. Like, they didn't care about all the rest of them dying, but they just wanted to save those kids, or like the youngest ones, or something.
Or maybe they had to like leave then, because then they heard that like the parents, you know, the Sodder parents were like stirring or something, or maybe they were worried that they'd get caught in the fire if they left any later or something. I don't know.
So strange. In 1940,
or maybe they were worried about getting caught by the cops or something. I don't know.
If there was four people there as well, because they said 2 women, 2 men, right? Maybe it was because they could only
handle so much.
Exactly.
Or fit so many in a car or something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
it sounds like they need more than 1 car for all them.
Yeah,
like
8. Yeah. They must have had 2 cars, I think. They must have done. Do you know what I mean? They must have done.
They're crazy, man.
4 adults and then 5 kids. Yeah.
Because I feel like it'd be quite hard for them to like.
Winnebago.
I don't know how old. I don't know how old the rest of the kids were. But like for one
just
person,
ranging between 5 and 14, you said, didn't you? So the oldest one was 14 and the youngest one
yeah,
was
but
5.
I mean the ones that I weren't.
So the other ones seemed to be older.
Oh right.
Oh no, there was like a baby, and then
was the baby taken?
No, so the baby, and then the other 3 were like all older, like 17.
I expect the
baby
baby
was
was
20. For one person to take like 2 17-year-olds.
Yeah, that's
like, maybe they just
the boys will fight, or even the girls.
They
will
went
fight,
for the young'uns.
Yeah, and I expect the baby
14-year-old though. That's like
a 14-year-old could fight.
Yeah, I reckon he'd be a bit like.
But I reckon like
some 14-year-old lads are bigger than fully grown men.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
You was.
Yeah.
So in 1947, George and Jenny sent a letter about the case to the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
That's what it's called in Italian, Fedro.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation. And received a reply from J. Edgar Hoover.
Right.
Who's that? Is that he rings a bell? J. Edgar Hoover.
President Hoover.
Yeah,
I
think he's
the president at the time. Yeah. Wait a minute. When was this? What? 1945.
47.
No. I don't know. He might have
J.
been.
Edgar Hoover.
I thought President Truman was still in then, but he might have been.
Could have been like an ex-president or something.
Or maybe
he was
high
like
up in the
vice president at the
Federal
time.
Bureau of Investigation.
Yeah, my American politics isn't great, but I know that. Yeah,
I've definitely heard of that name.
President Truman was at the end of the Second World War, which obviously ended in 1945. I'm not sure about so much after that.
Have a look.
So this is what J. Edgar Hoover said to them in a letter. Although I would like to be of service, the matter related appears to be of a local character and does not come within the investigative jurisdiction of this bureau. Hoover's agents said they would exist if they would assist. They would exist if they could get permission.
Right.
They would assist if they could get permission from the local authorities, but the Fayetteville Police and Fire Departments declined the offer. This is a bit fishy.
Yeah. And also, like, if it's a cross-state issue, then surely it does become a federal matter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, if they've been like seen.
Yeah, multiple states, because that's not a state issue anymore, is it? It's not an issue for state police. It's an issue for the greater country at large. Yeah.
Next, the Sodders turned to a private investigator named C.C. Tinsley, who discovered that there was that the insurance salesman who had threatened George was a member of the coroner's jury that deemed the fire accidental. That's a bit crazy, isn't it? He also heard a curious story from a Fayetteville minister about F.J. Morris, the fire chief. Although Morris had claimed no remains were found, he supposedly confided that he'd discovered a heart in the ashes. He hid it inside a dynamite box and buried it at the scene.
What? That's a weird thing to be left. No bones, but a heart.
Why would he hide it in a dynamite box and bury it at the scene as well? That's a bit weird. Tinsley persuaded Morris to show them the spot. Together, they dug up the box and took it straight to the local funeral director, who poked and prodded the heart and concluded it was beef liver, untouched by the fire. Soon afterward, the Sodders heard rumours that the fire chief had told others that the contents of the box had not been found in the fire at all, that he had buried the beef liver in the rubble in the hope that finding any remains would placate the family enough to stop the investigation. So this is fishy with the fire department. He's planted it there so that they can see some remains and then be like, oh yeah, they must have died in the fire.
And why did they take so long, to arrive? You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're either being paid off or
they're in on it.
Yeah.
They're or maybe even just like.
Why did he want to deter it?
Or like trying to close the case because they're too lazy to look into it more.
Which seems to happen quite a bit, like we were saying last time as well.
Yeah, man.
Over the next few years, the tips and leads continued to come. George saw a newspaper photo of school children in New York City and was convinced that one of them was his daughter Betty. He drove to Manhattan.
You know your own daughter's face.
Yeah, if he saw it in the paper. And
you just have the facial recognition that you just have for your children is like next level.
He drove to Manhattan in search of the child, but her parents refused to speak to him. In August 1949, the Sodders decided to mount a new search at the fire scene and brought in a Washington, D.C. pathologist named Oscar B. Hunter. The excavation was thorough, uncovering several small objects, damaged coins, a partly burned dictionary, and several shards of vertebrae. Hunter sent the bones to the Smithsonian Institution, which issued the following report. The human bones consist of 4 lumbar vertebrae belonging to one individual. Since the transverse recesses are fused, the age of this individual death should have been 16 or 17 years. The top limit of age should be about 22, since the centra, which normally fuse at 23, are still unfused. On this basis, the bones show greater skeletal maturation than one would expect for a 14-year-old boy, the oldest missing Sodder child.
That's weird.
It is, however, possible, although not probable, for a 14-and-a-half-year-old to show 16 to 17 maturation.
I guess the answer is like what would be common sense thing to say after that is, well, was he a mature lad for his age? Do you know what I mean?
So they're basically
if he looked like Nicky C, not very probable. is it? Do you know what I mean? But if he was like me or Josh or Willie, more likely.
Yeah, that's it.
You know?
And as you can see the photo, which let's have a look. What do you reckon? Oh, where is it?
Look quite old from what I remember.
So it's the oldest boy on there.
Let me have a look what I think.
What do we think? Mature or no?
I reckon he looks pretty young, doesn't he?
I would say neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't look at him and say like, oh mate, you look like you're 11. But
Does he look 17?
I wouldn't say so.
No.
I do think that some 17-year-olds could look that young, but I wouldn't. But that's probably because that 17-year-old in question would be very immature for their age physically, rather than because that would be a standard, you know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he looks particularly mature for a 14-year-old. He doesn't look immature.
So
I'd say about average.
whose bones were they if they weren't his? That's what's a bit strange. The vertebrae showed no evidence that they had been exposed to fire. The report said, and it is very strange that no other bones were found in the allegedly careful excavation of the basement of the house. Noting that the house reportedly burned for only about half an hour or so, it is said that one would expect to find the full skeletons of the 5 children, rather than only 4 vertebrae. The bones, the report concluded, were most likely in the supply of dirt George used to fill the basement to create the memorial for his children. So do you remember at the start, like they said that he got all that dirt and
covered it in to make like a memorial.
So he's saying that it's probably from that dirt. So that was just some bones that were in the dirt that he'd. You know what I mean?
Or either dug up on the property from like an old grave.
Yeah.
Or wherever he got the soil from, even if it wasn't
like
stuff he dug up. Well, let's face it, if he did dig it up, which you probably did, right? If you're living in a rural area and you're surrounded by just like land, you're probably just going to dig up the soil, aren't you? But, I mean, yeah, of course you could have vertebrae from people there. I mean, humans have been inhabiting North America for countless thousands of years, so there'll be all sorts of bones all over the place.
Bones.
There might be bones underneath us right now. Do you know what I mean? You don't know, do you?
Can imagine. The Smithsonian report prompted 2 hearings at the Capitol in Charleston, after which Governor O.K.L. Patterson and State Police Superintendent W.E. Burchett told the Sodders their search was hopeless and declared the case closed. Undeterred, George and Jenny erected the billboard along Route 16 and passed out flyers offering a $5,000 reward for information leading to the recovery of their children. They soon increased the amount to $10,000. So that was that billboard thing that I showed you at the start. That's when they erected that and then it was up for 40 years that they kept it there. A letter arrived from a woman in St. Louis saying the oldest girl, Martha, was in a convent there. Another tip came from Texas, where a patron in a bar overheard an incriminating conversation about a long ago Christmas Eve fire in West Virginia. Someone in Florida claimed the children were staying at a distant relative of Jenny's. George travelled to the country to investigate each lead, always returning home without any answers.
Cool.
In 1968, more than 20 years after the fire, Jenny went to get the mail and found an envelope addressed only to her. It was the watcher.
Yeah, man.
It was postmarked in Kentucky, but had no return address. Inside was a photo of a man in his mid-20s. On its flip side, a cryptic handwritten note read, Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, Lil Boys. A9.
What the hell? What
the heck? I don't know what. Read that.
I love little boys.
I love
Louis Sodder. I love brother Frankie. I little boys. What the hell? That's weird, man.
Is that all it says?
And then some numbers.
A90132. Or
man, that's some kind of like code or something.
That's weird, man.
What? And that's
weird.
Boys. That's not
just
even
hold up the photo, Drew.
Yeah. So the word is.
I'll just read this next bit. So, George couldn't deny. She and George couldn't deny the resemblance to their Louis, who was 9 at the time of the fire. Beyond the obvious similarities, dark curly hair, dark brown eyes, they had the same straight, strong nose, the same upward tilt of the left eyebrow. Once again, they hired a private detective and sent him to Kentucky. They never heard from him again. So that's the guy that.
He does look loads like him. Is that supposed to be the oldest boy?
The 9-year-old.
The 9-year-old boy. So it's so the one that's in the middle, I assume.
So it's the middle guy. Yeah, the middle boy, and then.
Also, do you know what's crazy? Not only can I imagine it that's what the middle boy would look like growing up, but it looks. I thought it was the older one, but. It
does look.
They're
more like
brothers, and he would be closer to the age that his brother was when he died, so it would make sense that.
Yeah.
They look so similar.
Man, that's crazy.
So that's just like a weird thing to get in it. Like no return address, just a picture of him, and then just like and that's 20 years
so
after
cryptic.
the fire.
That's so
cryptic. You'd be like so
that's
annoyed
ridiculous.
as well, wouldn't you? You'd be like,
man.
oh man, this has just been haunting me my whole life.
You wouldn't have no respite.
No respite.
And you want to do everything you could to like figure out what is going on.
Yeah. It sounded like, just for all the rest of their life, they were just like...
Yeah, man.
The Sodders feared that if they published the letter or the name of the town on the postmark, they might harm their son. Instead, they amended the billboard to include the updated image of Louis and hung an enlarged version over the fireplace. Over their fireplace, that's right. Time is running out for us, George said it in an interview. But we only want to know if they did die in the fire. We want to be convinced. Otherwise, we want to know what happened to them. He died a year later in 1968, still hoping for a break in the case. Jenny erected a fence around her property and began adding rooms to her home, building layer after layer between her and the outside. Since the fire, she had worn black exclusively as a sign of mourning and continued to do so until her own death in 1989. The billboard finally came down. Oh, I got shivers then when I read that bit. Her children and grandchildren continued the investigation and came up with theories of their own. The local mafia had tried to recruit them and he had declined. Tried to recruit him and he had declined. They tried to extort money from him and he refused. The children were kidnapped by someone they knew, someone who burst into the unlocked front door, told them about the fire and offered to take them someplace safe. They might not have survived that night. If they had, and if they lived for decades, if it really was Louis in the photograph, they failed to contact their parents only because they wanted to protect them. That's kind of what they thought about it. Like the kids didn't get in contact because they knew that the mafia would, trying to protect them and stuff.
Kill the parents or something. They probably said like if you try and contact your parents or try and escape, we'll just like kill you or something.
And maybe that was just the letter that came was just like a note being like, we are still alive, like we still,
but we can't speak.
Yeah,
to you.
exactly. Yeah.
Before her death in 2021, the youngest and last surviving Sodder child, Sylvia, exclaimed that she did not think her siblings perished in the fire. In later life, she was known to visit crime-sleuthing websites and engage with people still interested in her family's mystery. Her very first living memories of that Christmas night of 1945, she was 2 years old and never could quite forget the sight of her father bleeding amidst the terrible symphony of her siblings' screams. A mystery that remained unanswered in her lifetime. We can only hope that in death she found some peace. Whatever happened to the Sodder children?
I do not know.
I don't reckon they died in the fire.
I don't either.
It's
just too fishy, man.
Yeah, you would find something. All of the weirdness that happened around it as well.
Some sort of dodgy mafia Mussolini stuff going on it.
The fact that it was all like all Italian and everything.
Yeah, you know what Italians are. Yeah.
Seemed very like seemed very premedicated as well.
Yeah,
like they thought of everything. So it must have been pretty like do you know what I mean? It didn't seem like a shoddy job. They got rid of the ladder. They'd broken the cars so they couldn't even get like a car to prop themselves up. Cut all the lines.
They'd made sure that there was no way that they would be able to get
the police officer seemed to be and the fire department seemed to be in on it somehow.
Well, the mafia has so much power. Like multi-million pound sort of industry, aren't they?
Do you know what else it made me think as well when I read that story?
What's that, man?
You know, we were talking about before about like people having less kids nowadays, like completely, like it's like and Elon Musk saying that it's gonna the decline of humans is gonna be population and stuff. So like they had like 10 kids. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of families would be like that. I remember like my granddad saying his mum, like my granddad was a sibling of like loads of kids as well. Like I don't quite know how many, but
no, even my
quite
granddad didn't have 10 siblings, but he had 3 brothers and a sister, so that's 5 kids.
Yeah.
And that was like just common.
Yeah. It seems like it, you know. So it is definitely different, a different way of living and a different way of being back then.
Between sort of like our sort of like immediate friend group, like our sort of close friend group, or at least like from school and stuff like that, and then college. So only me and Nikki see that I've got a kid. We've only got 1 kid each. And that's it. 2 kids between how many like blokes? Do you know what I mean?
Did you see the world population went up to 8 billion for the first time recently? No.
Crazy, man.
Crazy world.
That's it. It's
so
a crazy world.
Do you reckon those kids lived?
I reckon
afterwards?
they lived somewhere.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, I
don't reckon
mafia.
they did. But yeah.
Okay, mafia for sure.
But yeah, it's a pretty crazy story, isn't it? Like, lots of like
really good story, very interesting
100%.
story.
Like you said, it would be so frustrating as well. Like
I just can't imagine
the whole thing.
Yeah, something changing your life that much, and like I know I bring old Raoul up quite often, but like when he was saying about his brother going missing, like Machu Picchu and that, and just it's something that hung over their family. That like it still does. You know, you still get sad when he talks about it and everything. It's like you'd never get over something like that. You know?
I think closure is so important in life.
Yeah.
Like, closure is far more important than even just like knowing bad news, because closure it's like this it's like not having a last chapter of a book,
and
that's
it's like,
way worse than the last chapter being bad, or like a negative chapter,
like it gives you like false hope but also false sadness
and
like,
confusion,
like, confusion, sadness,
and I think a lot of the reason
hope.
why people feel like say unhappy when a relationship ends is if like the other person hasn't given you closure. So if they just, I mean, and that's really bad. You know what I mean? You need to bring things to an end.
It keeps a wound open.
Yeah, you need to bring things to an end in almost like a very
open wound.
In a very respectful like way, or a compassion, or like a compassionate way. You know?
Yeah.
You can't just leave. Do you know what I mean? Or more like with this, it's just like kids are just gone. Nobody's helping them. Doesn't make sense. All the fishy stuff that happened around it, but they've just never had any closure.
And like you said, it's then dripped on through the family. Like you were saying, like all their siblings then took on the case after their parents' died, and then their grandkids as well.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone, you know, still clearly is looking for that closure that, to be honest, they probably won't ever get.
No, man.
That's it.
And on that note, we've come to the end of another Mystery Mondays. What do you think happened to the Sodder children? Let us know. And we will be back next Monday yet again with another mystery. It is my turn next week, I believe, to bring another mystery. I will see. I will dig into the archives and see what I can find for you all. Until then, stay safe, and let's all hope that a mystery will not one day be told about any of us. Stay safe, everyone. We love you.
Stay safe.
Goodbye.
We're gonna leave you with a song by a fella called Drew Armstrong. Now, don't know who this guy is.
Oh my!
And this track is called These Threads. Enjoy, everyone.
Sodder